to the first question about style. Now, style is something you should consider kind of like a language. Treat style like a language. So if you take a language like English, the way that I speak English is different than the way that people speak English in Australia, and then than the people that speak it in Europe, or people in this class even from different countries that have different accents. And those accents are derivative of their um, original language, right? And what tends to happen is that people don't focus in on that. They focus in on like, if I only look at, I want to be like this one artist or whatever. But the reality is that the way that you learned your language was not from only one person, right? It was a series of people. It was from watching movies, TV shows. It was talking to your parents. If you look at the kinds of people that you hung out with when you were growing up, and people that were raising you, you'll discover that perhaps your language and the way you speak is not necessarily unique to you either. It's a product of the people that surrounded you throughout your career. Oh, sorry, not your career, throughout your life, right? Because that's exactly right. That's how it works. And so if you treat art in the same regards, meaning that if you treat your art as like a product of language, like who are you learning from, like the way that you speak. And if you learn from like those two artists, you're most likely, or just two types of artists or two types of styles, you're most likely going to, have something that people can easily kind of pinpoint. And the best way to avoid that is to expose yourself to more and more information and learn from more and more people, you know? So a good example of this for myself is that like when I do any kind of artwork, it's not like uh, I've never like looked at any other piece of artwork ever in my life. Of course, I've looked at many, but it's like this. The way that I feel about it is like this. Every time I paint, I imagine almost like hundreds, if not thousands of artists over my shoulder. And each artist, you know, has something to say about my artwork. Okay? They're like, oh, I wouldn't have made that mark, or I would have pushed this, or I wouldn't have done that, I would have done this. And that is kind of why I paint the way I paint. It's like I have, like, for instance, when I make a mark like this, I imagine that Leyendecker would have disapproved. And if I make a design choice like this, I imagine that Scott Robertson would disapprove. And if I make a character choice like this, then I imagine Charlie Wen would disapprove. And then all these people kind of in my head talking to me all at once as I'm painting. That's how you get Anthony Jones. Okay? There was a time where I would only look at one or two artists, and it became very clear to me that if these two artists didn't paint a thing, like if they didn't do a certain, um, like if they didn't paint a certain material, right? If they didn't paint a certain material or what have you, then I wouldn't have been able to do a painting in that style at all. So for instance, if they didn't paint like metal, then I couldn't paint metal. You know, I if they didn't paint fur, then I didn't know how to paint fur. And that became very clear to me as a problem, not as a quality of endearment. I had a student who he had a very, very good style, but it looked very much like Massive Black, which is not a bad thing. That's actually really good. Massive Black are badasses. But I told him that, I was like, your stuff looks very much like Massive Black. I'm not sure if that bothers you or not. And he's like, that bothers me a lot. So I want my stuff to stand out. I don't want it to be like a copycat. I want to be my own. And so he did as I suggested. I told him to look at a lot of different artists. So he started looking at Asian artists, and he started looking at not just Asian artists, but he would look at um, European artists. You look at all kinds of different artists from all walks of life, and that's what helped him grow his work. And I like to bring up that story because what's really important about what he did was that he recognized that if the Massive Black crew didn't do a certain thing, that he wasn't able to do it either. Very much like I was explaining just a moment ago. Those ones will actually be down here. Someone said in the Discord, on our private Discord, that I should do more female characters. Or I think it was in our regular Discord, actually. And I was like, yeah, you're right. So I've been having dreams about doing more female characters. I used to do them a lot. I love painting women. Women are freaking hot. And I like painting them. And so I think I'm going to do it again. Get back into it. Someone asked a question. If you can voice that question, it'd be easier for me to read it than reading it. No? Maybe. Yeah, whoever. Someone was talking about networking.
Hi, my question is, how important is networking when the portfolio is not yet ready?
Real important. Okay.
But like networking online, that's different than going to art festivals and events. Like there are many of them.
It is for obvious reasons, right? Like when you go online, you talk to people kind of behind like a mirror, right? Behind a barrier. But then when you go to an event, you're in their face. You get to actually talk to them, and there's something valuable about that. I suggest both, obviously. Like, don't just do one over the other, right?
It's just to what amount, because the money and time I could for going to an event, I could also invest into practice.
Yeah, sure. And so ask yourself this question. What good is it to have amazing art, but nobody knows that you exist? I'm asking you now to answer that question.
Yeah, no reason to do that.
Yeah, right. Like it's going to. There's nothing wrong with being really good and then eventually coming out of the shadows, right? But there's no reason why you can't be out of the shadows as well, right? There's no reason why you can't go to 1 or 2 events a year. You see what I'm saying? The value of going to like an event, at least even just once a year, is pretty tremendous, because the people that the people that you might meet might change your life forever. You might meet your favorite artist who gives you the best piece of advice you would have never gotten if you didn't go.
So I've been at the IFCC in July, and it was great. And now it's just, there's in September, there's THU. In October, there's like something in the Netherlands. There are a lot of those. And it's just how many of those, like finding a balance.
Yeah, you're right. There's a reason why the word balance exists for this exact reason. Okay, is that just because you should go to as many events as you can doesn't mean you can or should. Because to be honest, because you might not be able to afford it. You're right. Like so, you have to weigh the pros and cons. You have to save up money to try to go to whatever event you can, whenever you can. THE, for instance, is one of those events that is super amazing to go to. It's very similar to kind of what people experience when they went to IFCC. In fact, IFCC is an evolution off of what THU did. The difference is that THU is like highly more organized. Not to knock down IFC. I love IFCC. IFCC is one of my favorite events I've ever been to. It's just that THU is super organized. They have like teams of people working like around the clock, making sure that's amazing. And Andre, like he's a powerhouse, man. He makes a lot of attempts to try to keep it amazing, you know. But it's very challenging. All right.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would say internet exposure is not as challenging. So there's really kind of no excuse for not doing that, right? The cost of that is not as much.
Maybe if no one else has another question, I
Well,
have
I
second one.
saw someone said Jack go first.
Yeah, he asked, will we have access to the recorded class
That's
videos
right.
after the mentorship?
And then I answered that. It's true. Thank you. And I said yes. Yes, you will.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, do you have any other book or questions that help to figure out the big goals, like what to do in life? Like I've read Eat That Frog and the Compound Effect, and both of them really helped me also get ahead personally. And for me, it's like at the moment, I'm still living with my parents. I'm in Switzerland. And if I really want to get into concept art, there's no industry here. I have to go abroad. And then if I get qualifications there, I probably will not be able to return to Switzerland because there will be no demand for that high art skills here. So it's like,
So
do I
what are
really
you
want
saying?
that art life and go abroad or stay where most of my friends are?
So first of all, there's no reason to leave, right? You can do freelance.
Yeah, the problem in Switzerland is that the costs of living are really high, and with the international freelance, so I don't know anyone that is living in Switzerland and doing freelance international.
So what you're saying is that you don't know any, you don't know of any person who lives in Switzerland
That does
and does
international
freelance.
concept art.
Okay, so you're saying that because you don't know anybody, that it's probably not existing. Is that what you're trying to get at? Remember how I talked earlier? I don't know if I spelled that right. I might have. I don't know.
No, maybe it's not that, but it's just I've talked to one guy that went, he's going to, I think he's living in Prague now, and he said it's just far more harder if you try and stay in Switzerland. It's not impossible, but it's harder. And I think it's doing concept art in itself is hard enough for me.
So you talk to one guy, you don't know any other people, and you don't think that it might exist. I mean, there's some people that look like live in Switzerland that are doing something. Yeah, this was one of my, I believe this is one of my,
Ooh.
actually I don't remember. This is pretty cool. Yeah, looks like...
Actually, I know one guy from IFCC that is doing, he's working for Lego, so there is at least one.
There could probably be two, Maya. You might be that second one that ever exists in the whole world, or at least the whole country. You got to understand that that just can't be true, right? Like, I'm not arguing that it's hard. I'm not arguing that it's probably going to cost maybe a little bit more than maybe some other countries. But to say outright that that's the case is just, I feel, is intuitively naive. So I found a place called Game Culture. Have you seen this before?
No.
Of course you haven't. Because if you would have, you wouldn't have made such assertions, right?
Yeah.
So this website basically is a Switzerland Arts Council of game development, it looks like. So apparently these are all the companies that work and develop here at home in Switzerland, yo. You know what I mean? I don't know off the top of my head like any major Switzerland company, but let's find out. Major Switzerland game company. Let's see if there's one.
There is like this map where you can...
Oh, hold on.
There are about 50 game studios listed for Switzerland.
Welcome to Ubisoft Switzerland. Like its country, our Swiss team is small, multicultural, and fond of video games. Yeah. Okay, so Ubisoft Switzerland. So that's a thing, but they might not be looking for artists. They might be like one of those localization companies, right? So let's see what they got. Search for jobs. Let's double down. Let's make sure that I'm wrong. Oh, they have some programmers. So there might be what? Get this thing out of the way. Why is this so enormous? Oh, look. Okay, this is like all of their jobs. So this is not even okay. So this is not an accurate portrayal of what I was looking for. What? So they advertise their Switzerland, but then there's no job opportunities here in Switzerland. How dare you? Here, let's just type in art. Let's see what we just get from that. There's still so many jobs. Okay. Concept. Let's see what that does. Okay, there you go. This logo, this is terrible. What were they thinking? Like, what if those were Switzerland? What if those are the... I'm just kidding. They might not be. So there's some stuff in Sweden. Not sure. So this is United Kingdom. Oh my God.
I know
This
some people
website is
that work
garbage.
for...
Get your act together. Okay, go ahead.
I know some of the people that work in those smaller game companies, and it's more like mobile games. But to do really like fantasy stuff, I don't know any demand for that one.
Yeah, and I don't either. But I'm trying to show you how you could probably find out. Next goals, games. Crown Adam. I'm trying to see if I can recognize any company. Looks like Hexagame. No, look, they're a casual game company, I think. Or is this... No, I think this is what I'm thinking it is. Let's find out. Internet is so amazing. Yeah, so they're just like some sort of... They are just like a... Oh, damn it. Okay, good. Oh, here we go. MMO trading card game. That might be valuable. Mobile games. You're not wrong about the mobile games thing, but that's just true everywhere, right? See what Everdream has up their sleeve. Oh, I guess they turned into a mobile game company? Oh no, but they do trading cards, so it's like, it's still cool. Oh, look at that. Moonga. Spells of Genesis. Oh, okay. So, from my research, um, these guys are a Switzerland or Swiss company.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So here's the different projects that they've worked on. Contact form. About. We love
One
Bitcoin.
thing is that some companies in Switzerland, they actually hire like artists from Germany because they are less expensive and it's so near.
You have to understand that all the things you're saying are not inaccurate,
Mm-hmm.
but that's true for every company.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you got to think like, um, how do I get a job against that type of climate, people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the point I'm trying to make is that you just got to dig, man. You got to find reasons, or you got to find examples of companies that you can work for and you could work for versus like, well, they're not going to hire because of this. Because you're right, that's true, but not for all studios, right? And yeah, there's probably a lot of mobile companies, but not all of them are mobile, right? And yes, it might be harder to work for what you call it, for external companies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because of whatever tax code you guys got going. These are all true. But what you've done is you created this environment of why it's impossible. Okay? And
Mm-hmm.
and I'm trying to say you're putting yourself in this perspective um, willingly. Like you're not wrong, but it's all about perspective. So for instance, the glass is half empty, half full analogy. Have you ever heard of that before?
Mm-hmm.
Where yes, the glass is half full is also true when the glass is half empty. That they're both right, but one person is seeing it as a positive, an optimistic point of view. The other person is seeing it as a pessimistic, negative point of view. You kind of get what I'm trying to get at.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not wrong, and all the things you said, I agree. Like these are all true. But then how does, let's say, like you might meet a Switzerland artist that does it, and how do they do it? Well, maybe they were the
Mm-hmm.
first to do it. Maybe you'll be amongst the first group of people to do it. I had done an event in Brazil, okay, in a really Curitiba, which is not like the more popular place in Brazil, right?
Mm-hmm.
We did a workshop there, and people showed up, and it was great. About 70 to 80 people showed up to the workshop. It's a lot of people. And when they all showed up, they were shocked that there were 70 to 80 people there because every single person there assumed that there's no other concept artist trying to get a leg up in the industry. Do you understand? They
Mm-hmm.
thought that it was just like only a thing that only the Westerners in America had, right? And that there was no industry in their country. And like there, I told them that's true. You know, you guys can believe in that, but then how come Mike Azevedo made it out? How come Lucas made it out? How come this person? How come there's so many other artists that are from Brazil who did really well? How come Rafael Grossetti left? You know,
Mm-hmm.
there's so many. There's actually a tremendous amount. And they started to understand that. And then one of the people that were at that workshop, they ended up making their own company and started expanding, and they started to develop the industry for themselves. They did it uh, on their own terms. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you're right, like different countries and stuff, there's different artists and they're going to hire maybe cheaper artists too. These are things that are out of your control. But like, I just took like 5 minutes and I found dozens of game studios, including that Ubisoft Switzerland had a studio, you know? And I didn't see any job postings for artists there, but Ubisoft is a pretty large studio. Um, I'm trying to think. I feel like there's a really large game studio in Switzerland. I'm trying to think of which one it is. There's one that keeps coming in my mind, but I don't think they're from there. They're close by though. I think they're actually in Denmark, which is not too close. Uh, Supercell. Where are these? Where are the Supercell guys from? Finland. I don't know my geography. How close is Finland to Switzerland?
Not that close.
Yeah, it's like where Sweden and all those other places are. Yee. You can't walk there. Wait a minute. Where in the world is Switzerland? I thought I had a
Between
good idea.
France, Germany, and Italy.
No, it's hiding. Hey, what are you doing, Switz? You know what? You're not too far away from some major countries that do have major studios.
Yeah,
You know what I
that's
mean?
the question.
Like,
France has like 200 or so.
yeah, there's no way that Switzerland doesn't have that many either. There's no way that's true. Because you're too close to these other ones. You know what I mean?
But it's way more expensive for the companies, so they are easy to go to the next country.
Yeah, sure. But there's gotta be someone that doesn't like that. They have the same principles. Like they don't want to leave their country because they love it. You know? Like Switzerland, from what I've heard, is dope. It's like really great, but really expensive. My friend, he actually told me. I was like, yeah, I'm thinking about going to Switzerland because I heard it's really, really nice there. And he's like, it's super expensive. Don't go. And I'm like, what? I'm like, you know where I live,
There
dude?
was a workshop in October with Shadi and Aiton, and there were like, we were like 50 people, I think.
Yeah, see, that's not bad at all. Like, it's not zero people. You
Yeah,
know,
it's just,
like
yeah,
you expect it to be hundreds and thousands of people. Like that's just not reality. Our industry is niche. We're a very niche industry already. Okay. A good point to be made actually about all that is that think about it like this too, is that when I was um, when I was like trying to host my own event here in America, my own event in California, um, only 130 people attended the event. You would think thousands of people would. It's just not how it works, man. The fact that you have 50 people is pretty impressive. And I try to bring that up to people all the time. And what
not all of them were from Switzerland.
yeah, see, so these people came to Switzerland just to see these things. So they didn't care.
Mhm.
So it's possible that people will leave their country to go even to your country. All of this stuff is possible. But at the end of the day, like, you know, there is reality. Sometimes if you really want to get a leg up in the industry, you might have to leave your country to work for others and then just come back later. I have plenty of friends who feel this way, who left their country, worked here in the States for a few years, and then they're just waiting for their contracts to be up so they can go back, you know? And that's
They
totally,
plan to do freelance
I
or
don't know.
find.
I have no idea. They just don't want to be in the States anymore,
Mm-hmm.
all right? I have no idea. That's their journey. And I can't speak for that either. I haven't left the States to
Yeah.
work ever. And so I was approached a few times, but I never left. And so, yeah, you could definitely do freelance though from anywhere. It might cost more money, but you can just charge more money. You can charge these big companies a lot more money. Okay? Like you can, if you were good enough to get approached by like Blizzard, you can charge them quite a bit. If you get approached by Riot, you can charge them quite a bit. They can afford it. You know? Like I think the cost of living, I looked into it, was very similar to how much I might pay here in the States. So what is your guys' currency?
Swiss francs.
Swiss francs to dollar.
It's like $1. About the same at
It's
the
about the
moment.
same, huh? Nice. Okay, so then cost of living in Switzerland. What? Not Switzerland, homie. So it's about $3,600 a family of 3 or more to live based on, I don't know what all this means. Okay. So it's about $3,600 in Zurich. Is that like the bigger city? I have no idea.
Yeah, that's
Like
the
the
biggest one.
capital city or something like that, or like a large,
Not
like,
capital, but tourist capital.
got it. So that makes sense, right? I pay for my rent in my little apartment in Irvine about that, about $3,000. If I wanted to buy a house in the same county that I wanted to live in, right here, like where I live, it's a super nice community, super nice environment. It would cost me about $5,000 to $6,000 a month mortgage, double what I pay right now. And these homes are $1 million homes, so I'd have to put like $100,000 down payment just to get started. That's why we don't live in a home over here. We live in a nice apartment, but not in a home because it's just too expensive. And the reason why we stay is for the kids. The kids are going to great schools, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't pay less, right, living there, but I would have a better quality of life because you guys have free healthcare, right, and free education.
Education. But in
Education.
art, it's not.
Oh, don't worry. Don't worry. We pay for our education, and it's probably not any better. Okay.
Yeah.
And so that sucks because we pay hundreds of thousands of dollars and get nothing to show for it. You guys just waste your time. That's all. We waste our time and our money. Okay. I have friends who are still
Okay.
paying their loans, and they work for companies like Riot. Okay. Like they're
Mm-hmm.
still paying off their goddamn loans. So don't get that twisted. Education in general and art around the world is not, it's not very easy to find. Okay, it's not a
Okay.
universally to
Thank
your
you.
it's not universal to your country. Okay, um, yeah, exactly. And so um, anyway, what I'm trying to get at is like you gotta kind of change your perspective a bit on a lot of this stuff. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I don't disagree with you actually. A lot of what you said is right. I don't doubt the challenge, you know, but you have to understand that with every challenge, there's always people who get past them. And I don't actually have many solutions for you off the top of my head, other than the most immediate ones that I talked about, which is you have to engage online and in these events often, so that way people can know that you exist.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because then you can potentially just work from home and never have to leave and live a modest living, all right, and do your passion at the same time. That is entirely reasonable, okay? It really is. Now, if it was like something like, there's some jobs that's like probably less reasonable. Like say you wanted to work for some sort of space program. I'm not sure what the space program is in Switzerland, but maybe it's not as extensive as say like NASA, you know. But even NASA's starting to fall apart a bit. But you get my point.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's some careers that it is better to probably have to leave your country to get those job opportunities. And it seems like the art career might be that way, but trust me, I know lots of people from all around the world who do not leave the comfort of their futon. Okay? And so you have to understand that that tide is changing. There's more and more people working abroad than there are people working in studio. That's happening. Okay? And all you have to do is demonstrate that you are someone worth paying for. Got it? And that will take some time, but it is totally within your grasp, homie. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, definitely within your grasp. All right, hopefully that encourages you at some level. But like, trust me when I tell you that, like, yeah, I get it, man. Like, streets of Switzerland are hard, man. I get it. But like I told you, like I just know too many people who have too many different circumstances in their life
Mm-hmm.
to just
Never
believe,
say
yeah, to believe that it's like that, like it's like impossible, really. I don't think it's impossible. I don't think you believe that it's impossible. It's just that the solution might not be 100% clear. And like I make no illusions that I might not even have the solutions myself, right? Because I don't live in Switzerland. I never had to deal with that. So you would know better than me, obviously. But find the people who made it out, right? And what they did differently. And if you can't find them, then you be the person, okay? You figure it out, and then you teach the next generation of Swiss badasses how to do it.
no. Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
I think Jack has a question as
yeah,
well now.
let's go. What's the question?
Hey, so my question involves a little bit about just like planning future and like our education wise. Um, I just graduated out of like college a couple months ago or like a month ago before I took this mentorship,
Yeah,
and I'm living at home right now, and I was just like deciding on or not. Like I have some offers on like full-time jobs like that are not art related, and I was wondering if like it's a good idea to take on those opportunities just to pay off like student debts, or just to like work part-time and like focus more time on my art.
if you can afford time to work on your craft, I always say do that. Don't just work just to pay the bills. If you don't have to pay the bills right away, okay? Like,
Mm-hmm.
take some time to really craft your work. Like, I think we talked about this last class. Like, it's unfortunate. I'm sorry that you came to the realization after graduating that perhaps um, it wasn't the best solution to just blindly follow instructions, right? You put too
Yeah.
much faith in these people. Um, like it's what the damage is done. You know, we got to move forward. And so, uh, like when I was going into school, for instance, I was encouraging my friends to leave because I was like, dude, this is a trap. And they're like, that's fine. I was like, it's a trap. It's a trap. And they're just like, no, we're good. I'm gonna wait till I graduate. And then they graduated, and it just didn't. They didn't get opportunities. It just didn't work out. Um, it took them a while, you know.
Yeah.
And I remember that. I was very sad about that. But now they're doing much better these days. But after having talked to them about it on many occasions, and so what I'm trying to make a point of is that you need to just understand that that's all you got to do now. You just got to start working. You just got to start building your portfolio. And if you ever do take a job because things will start to hit you,
Mm-hmm.
financially, and you have to start making ends meet, try to take jobs that allow you to still kind of practice in between if you can, you know, and then
Yeah.
and then while you're doing that, you know, again, perfect your portfolio, work on your portfolio. And one thing that you should consider while you're doing all that, right, while you're working for someone else, is that it'll just take some time, okay? Because if you start to work somewhere uh, right now, you might get complacent unintentionally, and then if you also start working somewhere that makes demands a lot of you, you might get tired often, which means you might not want to work hard when you get home.
Yeah.
You know, so
That's
just,
what I'm kind of afraid of. That like if I get home at the end of the day, like I won't have the energy or the like
oh
motivation
yeah,
to.
there's plenty of examples. I mean, you could even talk to Carlos. Carlos is a great example of this. Not to say that Carlos gets tired, he doesn't want to do his work when he gets home. No, Carlos is doing a job which demands a lot of his time, but he's found a way to kind of try to. He knows that this is not something that he wants to do forever. He's making some strides in his career, right?
Right.
And there's plenty of people like that. I have many students in my class that that are working already for the industry, but they're not doing exactly what they want to do. They were rushing in, and don't worry, like we're all victims to this. I do this too. I do this all the time, right? I'd rush in too often sometimes and make poor choices, right? It's just in human nature. It's just how we roll, man. And my advice to people is to just really focus in on those larger goals um, as you do baby steps to them, because eventually you'll get there and you'll have a better quality of life. That's where I'm at these days. I love what I do. You know, I teach people for a living. I help young artists achieve their goals and their ambitions. You know,
Yeah.
that's very rewarding for me. And then right now I'm also learning coding, which is very rewarding. I love learning something new. I love challenging myself and these types of things. And that's what's happening. You know, I'm doing it. I'm doing what I've set out to do. And a lot of times people don't do that. A lot of times people just, I need to make money now, like, or my mom and dad are pressuring me to do this or that, and they just do what they other external factors are guiding them to do, and then they end up doing it because that's how it works. If you put some time and attention to something, you generally will get it. And some things, when you put time and attention to, don't require a lot of your time and attention to get there, right? So you'll get there, but then you're there and you're thinking, I don't know. I don't know if I like this, you know? And
Hmm.
as your instructor, as your mentor, I try to help avoid this problem in you guys sooner than later, you know? And so
Hmm.
my advice is always, if you can afford not to work for a living just yet and just try to get better at work, um, do it. And then my advice to you on that too is give yourself a timeline though. Keep yourself accountable. Don't let it be floaty, because if you do that, time will catch up to you and then you're going to have to work. It's not going to be a choice anymore. Okay?
Right.
So like if you were to say, okay, I have nothing to show for my portfolio. I'm going to make a whole new portfolio before this large event. I'm going to take my portfolio to this event, get some feedback, and keep doing that. I'll give myself to the end of the year to really try to make get an opportunity. If I can't do it, I should try to take on another job. I won't give up. It's just have to be realistic now with the circumstances, you know, and so that way you're prepared for change and these dramatic shifts in um, um, your financial adventures, you know,
Yeah.
versus just kind of let it get blindside you like every single time. Make sense?
Uh, on that note, on like having a portfolio or like developing your art skills, like what is your opinion? I think you've talked about it before, maybe
Uh-huh.
not within class, but like what is your opinion on like going to an art school or like because I live in Northern California, so Southern California is not far from me where like there are a lot of
Uh-huh.
programs like Brainstorm, Art Center, all that. And I have
Sure.
some friends who went to Art Center too. So I don't know what's your opinion on like if I
I
should just
usually,
continue developing on my own or develop enough that that I can get into one of those programs and then continue from there.
yeah, you can already go to those programs. You don't have to wait. It's just a matter of cost. Can you afford it? I highly recommend Brainstorm. And before, it was unbiased because I wasn't teaching with them, but now I'm teaching, so it might seem biased. No, I generally believe in this model. Like, so there's CGMA and there's like CDA. You know, there's other programs there.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
believe in this more of you pay what you get type of model of education, right?
Okay.
Versus like some sort of long form structured type of education that promises grandeurs, but they fall through. Like you already did that. You went through that system already, right? And so Art Center isn't going to do that. They're going to definitely put you through a rigorous um, curriculum that will challenge you and make you a great artist. But it costs like $250,000.
Hmm.
You know, that's too much money, man. And so what do I suggest instead? Yeah, like taking classes from Brainstorm, for instance. Yes, it might be like $700, but
Hmm.
you will learn a lot, you know, and you're going to be learning from industry professionals. Like, let me ask you, like taking my course, how do you feel? Like how do you feel the money was spent? Was it a okay investment? Was it a good investment? Was it a bad investment? Comparatively to your school that you went to.
Well, the school that I went to wasn't like I didn't study art in school. I studied like liberal arts, so more like writing and literature. So that's not a valid comparison too much, but
I see.
definitely like on the note that like I definitely felt like I've gotten my money's worth. Like even
Okay.
before like really like the first class, like I was just watching like the videos of like your pre-recorded stuff on like getting started on the first assignment, and I already thought like, yeah, this is worth it. Like
Yeah, not to
that
put the pressure to give me a good review. I'm just, I'm
was
just, I'm just, I've rarely get critical reviews. I think out of all the classes, I might have got 4 out of the 3 years, and 3 of them were still very positive. They just gave me some advice, and I took that advice. And then, and then the, and then the one that was actually negative wasn't really negative. They just said they didn't like it, and then that was it. And I asked like, what was it about it that I could have done better? And they just said, I don't know. And I'm like, oh, well, that's help me, man. you know. And so, but yeah, well, that's constructive. And a lot of times I get criticism or comparison. Like people, one of my favorite praises for my schools specifically is when people said that they've learned more in my 1 month of my course than they did in the 3 years they took at their university. And that's my favorite uh, compliment because it demonstrates how crappy the educational system is. It vindicates what I've already thought was true, you know?
Mhm.
And I haven't met anybody who went to, let's say, like AI and then took my course and was like, now you know what, dude, AI is way better, dude.
AI.
Never have I. And I went to AI, so I know they would be lying to me if they said that was true. You know,
Yeah.
I put some effort into trying to make sure that people learn something. And so, my point is that Brainstorm, CDA, CGMA, Learn Square, like all these different platforms online, they do have a lot of value to offer. You know, I really believe that. I don't think these schools that are run by people that are not super professional, you might want to reconsider. Like, it's not necessarily fair to assess that just because they didn't work in an industry, they don't have something to teach you. But it is fair to assess that because that someone worked in the industry, they have a lot to teach you. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, it's like, let's say someone has never worked in an industry. It doesn't mean that they can't give you some good insight. Okay, but someone who's worked in the industry would have more trusted insight, right?
Right.
So there's a difference there. Like, I've worked at Blizzard. I worked there for nearly 2 years. I worked on the cinematics team. I worked on StarCraft. I worked on Overwatch. I know the people who worked on Overwatch. I know them personally. I have lunch and dinner with them every so often. I talk to them on the phone all the time, right? I know these
Yeah.
people. Like, I physically know them. I know and met Chris Metzen, who ran Blizzard for a while, like the creative team at least, you know? I know these people, man. I know the director that does all the shorts for all the Overwatch cinematics. Like, I know that guy, right? Like, we're actually buddies. Like, we would see each other. When I worked on Overwatch with them, like, we became buds. Like, I know them. So when I tell you, like, hey, this is kind of how it is, that's not like me speculating. I'm telling you, like, literally, that's how it went down. You know.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of value in my words when I tell you that. And I also worked for a lot of different companies, so I have a broader scope. That's why when people say, well, what is it like to work for a studio? I generally say that's not a really good question to ask because every studio runs differently. But you can trust that this and this may be true. For instance, that you will be expected to do quality of work, and that you have to do it in a very timely manner. There's
Mhm.
deadlines.
Mhm.
Okay, and so uh, when you go to Brainstorm, CDA, CGMA, Concept Art Society, I think is now a thing. There's like a lot of different places.
Yeah.
These people generally have something to offer to teach you. Okay,
Mhm.
they just do. All right, and you just got to understand that. All right, and it is worth your time and money if you invest it going down there, if you can afford it.
Mhm.
But for the rest of the people in the class who potentially cannot do that, you can still learn from afar. Like I said, the internet is a beautiful thing. It's letting people get a window to education. I mean, just like I don't have too much sympathy for you guys' lack of opportunity. It's because you guys are taking my class. That already proves a lot about your circumstances. Do you understand? Like, it'd be different if, like, let's say Maya, for instance, was like some sort of rural area in the world that I've never even heard of, and she has to use the internet only once a day, right?
Mhm.
And like, and she said like she saved her whole, she took her life savings to take my class, right? Like I don't have students like that. Okay,
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
have a student that's like I'm on the pits of the pits in my life, and this is like the only opportunity I've ever had. You know, like I don't have students that are just like coming from like some sort of really really dark spot in their life. You know,
Like if
uh,
we are privileged enough to take your class, then we have like the means and the
yeah,
resources.
like I have I have some suspicions that you guys aren't the starving artist is what I'm getting at. Okay, and with that knowledge, I'm trying to encourage you to say take advantage of that privilege is all I'm getting at. Okay,
Mhm.
a lot of people don't have access to my class. They just don't. People don't even know that I exist, that I'm a concept artist, that I do this thing for a living, and that this is even a job. You guys do. So take advantage of that. Yes, is it hard to work in the industry? Absolutely. Is it super competitive? Absolutely. Does that mean there's no room for you? Absolutely not. There's plenty of room. Okay, people need art. They just do. I'm making my own video games, right? The number one, the number one asset, like the number one time-consuming asset in the whole process is art. Programming is actually much faster than art.
Okay.
But art, like I have to create the character, I have to take apart the character, I have to animate the character in 7 different animations. I have to then make sure those animations blend with each other well, and then I have to then create the environment in which the characters engage. Then I have to create the the things that they are engaging in, the props that they have engagement with, the enemies that are there. I have to do all the art for the enemies. I have to do all the art for the bosses. This is why game dev teams are usually like 70 to 80% art.
Mhm.
Okay, so don't get me wrong, man. Like it's hard to do it, but there's plenty of room. They're always looking. People
Mhm.
are always moving around too. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna take on one more question. I was gonna do a workshop a little bit later, but I'll take one more
Thank you.
question. Yeah. Well, let's hold off for a second, Maya. Let's see if anyone else has a question, just in case. And if you have, yeah, if nobody does, then you can go for it. And if someone does, we can hold off your question next week. I'll be sure to answer it. I promise. Anyone else have any questions? Going once, going twice. Sold to Maya in Switzerland. Oh wait, Erica asked a question. How do you fight your own doubts about yourself? Dang, she just got it in. All right. Um, so that's the thing, right? How do you fight your own doubts? So that's kind of the thing is that your doubts in the basis of reality are generally unjustified. Like they don't really have any kind of justifiable um, reality to them. Okay, because your doubts are basing everything on this idea. Yeah, your doubts are based off of this idea of uncertainty of the future. Oh yeah, you're not getting any younger. Neither will Stan Lee, and Stan Lee arguably has right now is in the peak of his career. There was a great story about like when he was in this like I think it was in his 30s maybe, where he was doing his first comics, and he was going to quit because the publisher didn't like the ideas that he had, and he's going to quit. And his wife was like, "Nah, you should totally do it. You should do it the way that you want to do it. Like the worst that's going to happen is you get fired, and you were going to quit anyway, so might as well just get out of your system." And then now we have the Marvel Universe, right? One of the second to third largest, like the top 5 largest franchises in the world. Okay, and so John Lasseter from Pixar was fired from Disney, right? Like Steve Jobs lost Apple. You know what I mean? Like there's just so many examples of just like tremendous failure and flops from these amazing entrepreneurs and innovators. And there's just teams of people and tons of people that are just struggling. So self-doubt, like think about it. This is a good exercise. Do this like right now to yourself. Let's say you have a goal, whatever that goal is. Imagine what that goal is. You're going to work for Riot Games. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. Okay? Like you really love their games. You want to work there. Got it. That's your goal. You apply to Riot Games, and then they don't want to hire you. They say you're not good enough. All right? You failed. So now you quit. You quit art. Right? No, right? Okay, well then let's say you go for years on end and you don't get jobs in the industry for another year or two, and you're really barely making ends meet, and you apply again to the Riot Games, and they're like, "Oh, that's pretty cool, but we don't have room for you." So I guess you quit again. You quit art altogether. Never try again, right? So hopefully you kind of see where I'm going with this. Is that your self-doubts are usually, yeah, so your self-doubts are usually in this context of if you fail, right? So imagine yourself failing and then asking yourself, how would you handle that situation? And just like you did swimmingly, you would say, well, I'm just going to keep at it. So you can see that self-doubts are just a little distracting. It's just your brain trying to get you out of a danger zone. Because right now, when you're trying to learn new stuff, you're psychologically putting your brain at a constant state of stress, and it doesn't like it. So it's like, hey, man, let's just go play some golf, yo. Let's go play some Overwatch. Get the platinum, you know? That was a little bit of a zing to somebody. Um, like, and so if you're really bad about like being, perseverant with yourself, like to say, just suck it up, just kind of, this is just me, you know, lashing out internally, but I know better. I know I should just keep at this. Like, once you kind of do that, right, have that inner conversation with yourself, you just got to do that often, so you start to manage this kind of self-doubt that you have. And I always use the word manage because sometimes you can never get rid of it. Like you might just assume that what if this is just something that's in you and you can never get rid of. So don't let like another thing stress you out. Like this idea that you can never stop doubting yourself. Like no, just say, okay, I can never stop doubting myself. That is something that is just who I am. But I'm going to manage it. I'm going to create some rigid rules for myself that will prevent me from letting that part of myself take over more often than not. Okay? And it might include stuff that doesn't have anything to do with art. Maybe you do things like you go hang out with friends just to kind of let loose a little bit, get out of your mind for a bit, then come back to it. There's all kinds of ways to manage this. But that's kind of the way that I usually try to help people with that type of issue, is to teach them not to necessarily run from it, but to embrace it And if it eventually does go away, great. If it doesn't, you've accepted that already and you're going to move forward with that acceptance. Yeah. All right. Glad to be of service. All right, guys. I'm going to bounce out. Peace out, friends. I'll answer your questions next week as well. You guys have a great weekend. I'll talk to you guys real soon. Have a great one. Peace. Thank you for watching this video. I appreciate it. Please subscribe to watch more in the future. If you like the video, I would appreciate a thumbs up. If you like this content, you can go to my website, robotpencil.net, where you can find mentorships, tutorials, and a Patreon to get more exclusive content. Thanks again, and I'll see you guys in my next videos.